All right. Welcome back to the latest edition of the Other League Pod. Anth, people have spoken. They wanted you back, and we're going to give the people what they want. Welcome back to the pod. Appreciate you jumping on. Snai was not really reluctant to give the reins, would say, to you. He said, "Hey, you guys always kill it." So, welcome back. Appreciate having you. What you think? What's going on? How's the week?
Good, good. Yeah, definitely appreciate being back on the pod. Obviously, missed big game, missed a train, but yeah, definitely always glad to come back on the pod when it's needed. So, happy to be here. Happy to get ready to dive into some recap and looking forward to next week. So, let's get to it.
Yeah, so we're obviously, unfortunately, a week behind. Snyder and I try to connect. I felt like a million times for the week seven recap and the week eight preview, but um, Halloween and families and schedules just couldn't align. But any case, we're here today. We'll skip week seven. We're too far behind to go back to that, but we'll touch on week eight, obviously, since we're just coming off of that, and we'll get into some week nine matchups. So let me get rolling here real quick. All right. So a little different in terms of how we did it. I texted out some previews, just because that's all we could really get out to the guys. I do appreciate some managers giving us some feedback and saying, where's the pod and why aren't you guys putting it out on Thursdays anymore? And it's tough on the weekends, obviously, for guys to kind of sit through it. And I think this is a good light for kind of the work week and kind of looking forward to the weekend. So we're gonna try to keep doing this hopefully on Wednesday nights, get it out before the weekend. But some good results for the two hosts this week. I'll say that. Let's start off with my matchup. I honestly thought it was going to be a nail biter. I had Rick in an early preview here, obviously in terms of my prediction. And if you're just listening, I would say here's the cheese grater that Rick set. This thing is an industrial sized cheese grater. I don't know what he thought I was going to be shredding up, but um, yeah, thanks, Rick. This is a wonderful gift. Laurel thought this was exceptional, by the way, that we got this. But yeah, funny, it came in at like 12.55 on Amazon. So I thought that was a perfect timing for Rick. There's always something up the guy's sleeve. But yeah, pull out an absolute nail biter. I don't know. Take it away, Anthony. I mean, I'll go on my side. You can go on Rick's side if you want, and we'll start off.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like going into the matchup, I figured it was going to be a close one. Maybe not this close. I mean, no one's going to expect like a 2 point, 1 point, or like point five matchup as we've gotten over the years. But yeah, just a very 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 big win for you. Obviously, you don't. I'm not saying records could say one thing about the two teams here, but you're obviously with Jordan Love getting hurt in the game against Jacksonville. It's like kind of like very 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 frustrating. Obviously as a Packer fan and as a manager of him in fantasy, you're just like, oh man, like fucking. He didn't really have a good game before he got hurt. Just very forcing some throws. I mean, that's a little bit of like, I mean, a little nervousness of mine as a Packer fan. Like, he's a great player, but like, stop forcing throws so much. I mean, he gets a lot of picks that way. But despite that, I mean, big performance by James Cook. I mean, finally giving him the ball like more than he was getting probably in previous years and getting him ball in the red zone. And now he's not getting vultured by Latavius Murray anymore. And then in the years past, so like
Yeah.
Josh Allen has. I mean, he's still going to get his. He's going to vulture a touchdown or two, but getting two touchdowns, 111 rushing yards. I mean, he's just been playing very well this season, getting some touchdowns and scoring a lot of points. So that's huge. And then everyone else, all your position players. I mean, pretty much responded to in a pretty good week. Pretty good week. Drake London, of course, you expect a little more out of him. I mean, that game, I figured
Hmm.
every time they play Tampa Bay, at least this year, Kirk Cousins and the Falcons are trying to light it up a little bit, but a little bit of a tepid performance by him, but it doesn't really make a difference in this matchup, and you are able to pull it away. But as far as Rick goes, I mean, he said it in his text to the group about receivers, which ones to play. And I think, like, I mean, it's hindsight's 2020. I would say I would have played Amari Cooper as well. I mean, just a sense of
Yeah.
like you're expecting him to be the number one with the trade, to Buffalo. he ends up only getting one reception for 3 yards, which is definitely infuriating. I'm sure for him just to see that, with the guys on his bench and whatnot performing, up to above expectations. But yeah, definitely that's the one name that you look at, and of course the one pointer just staring you in the face like, wow, like I could have won this matchup and been,
Of
had
anybody.
a third win, but unfortunately it doesn't go his way, and leaving a lot of points on the bench, really,
Yeah.
really frustrating, I'm sure, for him. But that's the name of the game. Sometimes you can't play everyone. It's only one flex. You know what I mean? So like you're gonna every team's gonna have. I'm sure going forward as well. Like we're gonna have one guy where like, oh, I really should have played him. He went off with 20 points, but I can't really fault him for playing. Those guys. So
No, I think I mean obviously from you kind of had some pretty good takeaways. Jordan Love didn't look good like you mentioned. Watching a lot of that game, obviously, as a Packer fan, and yeah, it was certainly frustrating to see him go down again. New injury, obviously, with the groin, so we'll see what happens coming in here now to week 9 and a huge matchup against the Lions before their bye week, but. Um, yeah, you've kind of hit on this, a few times that we've had you on the pod from last year and this year. Your quarterback gets you under 10, 5 pointer. I'm not expecting to win. I kind of chalked up after that, and I saw the injury happen very early on, and I said, you know what, this matchup's probably over. Unfortunately, you get that 6 pointer or 5 pointer, and that's a lot of points to make up for the rest of your guys. And luckily, to your point, my Buffalo players came to play, and James Cook has looked awesome. I kind of took him just as, hey, I need another running back in terms of the draft. James Cook is sitting there. Always liked the player. Had him, I think, last year or the year prior. So a guy that I was always a fan of, just never necessarily got the carries or the touchdowns really to maybe warrant a week in and week out player in your fantasy lineup. And he's been awesome. He's certainly a keeper option for me for sure for next year. But the rest of the lineup very top heavy. I don't have a very deep bench, but my starters are really keeping me alive and keeping me rolling. So that's really all I can really note on that side of things. I mean, everyone else kind of did what they needed to do, and I got a nice 4 o'clock stretch from DeAndre Swift, who again continues to put up 20-point weeks. Not a guy I was going to really rely on, but the Pacheco injury, I needed to fill it, and he was my third running back that I drafted, thinking he was going to be okay, and thank God he is. So, yeah, disappointing for Rick. I mean, losing by 2, any legit receiver on his bench would have won him the matchup.
yeah,
But I think his team overall, we keep saying this every week with him. I mean, his team's good. I mean, he's got the number one quarterback, the number one player in fantasy in Lamar Jackson, who had a pretty decent game. Obviously, 28. You love a 30-pointer from your quarterback. Jonathan Taylor looked awesome in that Houston game, even in a loss. David Montgomery continues to do what he does. And gotta really love to see Travis Kelce, from Rick's standpoint, getting going. I mean, a 25-point week. Um, I mean, guy did it all, I felt like. And I think it's probably what they're going to need to do in terms of just getting ramped up, even though they're undefeated. If they're looking to try to, three-peat, obviously, as a team, him getting involved in that passing offense and then obviously scoring this week for the first time in the year. I think it was his first touchdown. I'm pretty positive it was. Yeah.
yeah. It's only got one.
Um, yeah. So, I mean, that's big. And like I said, it's not easy looking down at some of these kind of second tier receivers and saying, hey, I should have played him over Amari Cooper, who, on a new offense, second week with him, you thought maybe he'll take off. So, yeah, tough sledding for Rick's sake, but huge bounce back week and a win for Green Bull. So we stay in that top four, the top four teams in the league, and I think that's respectfully where I should be, just based off the lineup. So, good win, and that was a loss for me as well in my predictions. But
Yeah.
um,
Didn't you
let's
say
go
it
down.
a nail biter too? Not to
I
interrupt.
did say nail biter. Yeah, no, you're absolutely
You
right.
were
Yeah,
close.
I thought it was going to be a tight one. But like I said, I liked some of his matchups, and after I don't know what was it, 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Jordan Love's sitting there with 5. I basically chalked it up, but hey, fantasy's fantasy. Got to play the game.
True.
Let's go into a guy who's just after making that bold prediction of not being ever last place, he's certainly climbing down the ladder to see if he can get down there. Our esteemed commish, who, yeah, we'll see. I mean, we got to get him on the pod. We got to get some energy from him at some point. So, we'll be looking to bring him on very soon, especially if he loses again. We need to hear events from him. But just runs into who I think, again, my least favorite manager in the league, Steve. But again, Steve's team, I think, is a juggernaut. His team's really good. And I think is only going to potentially start getting better with some of the players we'll kind of touch on here. But go ahead, pick a side. What do you see? What do you see in this matchup? I mean, obviously Steve goes off for 142. I think that was top points in the week. So tough to see from the Bastards, but
Yeah, for sure. And we'll touch on I'll touch on Logan's team and Steve as well. Logan, of course, like the main story coming out of this matchup, besides the loss, is the fact that Stefan Diggs, torn ACL out for the season. That's a huge loss for him because he's actually been very, very productive this season. I mean, when they got Stefan Diggs, I didn't think they had to add Stefan Diggs to their team. They're already very talented as it is. Nico Collins, obviously Tank Dell. They add Stefan Diggs, you can see there. I mean, it helps a little bit that Nico Collins has been on the short-term IR, missing 4 games. But, you get 19, 18, 14, 19. You see the point totals up and down the list there. You're happy about that. You are. But I feel like just a rough go there, losing him for the season because, it's tough to replace that production. And then, of course, with Tua being out, Tyreek has been basically, muted in his production. I mean, Tua comes back this week, solid PPR number with 13, but you're expecting more. Besides week one, of course, we haven't seen that, but of course the quarterback situation has been so shitty for Miami. But with Tua back, he's got to really hope that Tyreek Hill gets those 25 to 30 point games. He needs that because it can offset some of these other performances from his other players that he's not going to get those 15 to 18 points from Diggs. Also too, I thought CJ Stroud would have been a guy that's got to get 25, 30 points every week. And despite the fact that they won, they're getting more production from the running back position. I mean, obviously now they get Mixon, he's going off. So I feel like and the defense is a solid defense as well. So maybe he doesn't have to sling it as much. But I think when he drafted him and he drafted that stack, I feel like he thought that he was going to get 30 points maybe every week from Stroud. And besides, I don't think you'll see it. He hasn't hit 30. I was looking that up before we came on. Hasn't had that 30-point game. I mean, Jacksonville 27 is kind of that's kind of close, but week 7, 5 points against Green Bay. I mean, that was shocking to me. I thought for sure going to be a shootout. He only gets 5, very disappointing. So probably expected more from him. And he sits 3-5. I mean, with the injury to obviously Diggs. So I mean, he gets obviously Chubb is a little bit rusty, as you can see. I mean, the name value's there. I mean, you have Chubb and Kamara. That's a really, really good 2 running backs. Obviously, we were talking all year about he was plugging in Gibson, he was plugging in Madison. I mean, Rashawn Johnson, all these secondary running backs in the league. And he's just got to hope and pray that Chubb regains his form. I mean, can he? Remains to be seen. There was a hell of an injury that he had to come back from, and I don't think they didn't. They're not giving him 100% of the snaps. I mean, he had 30. I think he had 30% a week before. Last week he had 60% of the snaps that he usually plays. So they're ramping him up a little bit. But he's got to hope and pray that Chubb can be back to his standards. Because I mean, if not, might be a little tough. He still got the names to do it, but obviously losing him and obviously Mike Evans, of course, too. I mean, he's Phil. I would hate to not mention that. I mean, he's out right now too. So it might be a little bit of a rough stretch right now. If he can get Evans back and Chubb up to speed, I mean, he'll still be there. I mean, he'll still be in the playoff hunt. So I don't think he's going to be too much in trouble there. But it's tough. Steve just put up a great week on his end. 142 points. It's a great game from him. Led by, not really led by Gibbs, but Gibbs had the most explosive play of the night.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That run was great. Obviously commented on, but the 1-2 punch with him and Kyren, that's a hell of a team there. I mean, receiver wise, I like his receivers. I mean, he didn't start Marvin Harrison Jr. because of course, the week before he had a game on his bench. I mean, so I've seen some of the highlights. Stunting like his daddy, pretty much. He looked like his dad. There are a lot of those like tough catches to make. So like he plugs him back. He'll be plugging him back in this week for sure. Giving him a pretty good receiving core. So he's looking good at 6-2. So I mean, just a big nice win for him, I'm sure. And he's moving on to next week being 6-2. So good game from him.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. I think, Logue, um, the expectation, I think, to your point, for CJ Stroud and that stack, kind of overlooking maybe a little bit of, some maybe that glaring hole at RB2 when he drafted. I mean, I know that was kind of those mid rounds where he did that stack pick. But, now there's, few horses in the stable, so to speak. Kamara obviously is great. Tyreek Hill on name value alone, and hopefully Tua gets him going a little bit to your point. But Keenan Coleman, I think, was a nice pickup. I think he's looked pretty good the last 2 weeks, but a lot of mouths to feed in Buffalo in terms of that receiving core. We mentioned Amari Cooper from Rick's standpoint, so but I do like the Rook. I think he's solid, and if he maybe keeps this up, he's got a viable another receiver to throw in that mix until Evans comes back in another couple weeks here. But 3 and 5, it's kind of make or break time for Logue in the next couple weeks here. I mean, the push for those top 7 spots is it's getting tight because the top 4 kind of separated themselves. So we're really only 3 spots I really feel like are up for grabs. And really only amongst maybe 4 teams. So it's gonna come down to the wire. I think Steve's team is might be tops in the league, to be honest with you, right now. I mean, he's kind of flirting around, or I should say, skirting around really the injury bug. I mean, he hasn't got hit with anything necessarily. I mean, if you look at his team, he's gotten no injuries essentially from any of his players that he drafted, which is huge. I mean, you need that. He's halfway through the year. Um, Jaden Reed has been pretty subdued, I would say, in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Again, Packers fans, great that we have all the talent in the world, but Jaden Reed is certainly not the guy that's getting um, as much looks as I thought. I mean, early on he was, and then now they're kind of going to the hot hand a little bit. So George Pickens, I think, is actually going to be a pretty good play for him in moving forward because I mean Russ is chucking the ball downfield, so that could be a good play. And then yeah, I mean you nailed it. I mean we've been talking about Gibbs. Kyron was kind of maybe somebody you were a little scared to draft this year. He's been amazing, and George Kittle's the #1 tight end. The guy goes off every week. I mean, I gotta just go through this. I mean,
Yeah.
George Kittle on name value alone was great, but he never necessarily had the production, I think, every single week to be like the top guy. And by far this year, he's been the top guy. I mean, besides the week that he didn't play on, per injury. I mean, 8 on a normal week from a tight end is probably pretty good, and that's his lowest point till everything else has been 14 plus. Most weeks in the 20s. That's huge out of the tight end position because the tight end position has been a wasteland for the most part. So, and J.K. Dobbins, maybe sleeper pick of the year. So,
Right.
Steve, I hope there's some injuries coming. That's all I'm going to say. Um, but yeah, Steve gets a 6-2. Let's go to this one. Hot little beef, man, a hot little beef. Um, maybe a big beef, to be honest with you. I mean, the guy lost week 1, and he has been on a run. I mean, 7 in a row. He's got to be feeling good. I will say, to kind of tame or temper, expectations, he has the lowest points against by far in the league. So, I mean, that is, you know, a little bit of luck on a week to week basis, but he does have a really solid team, and he's finding ways to win week in and week out. I'll kind of kick it off a little bit here. I it's hard to go against his lineup this week. I mean, I kind of looking down the list a little bit, just a lot of guys that I kind of liked. Now, this Jordan Mason thing is going to be interesting because as a CMC owner, I'm sure you're kind of hoping that we see CMC coming out the bye, obviously.
Yeah.
And Gorendo looked pretty good. Now, they've come out and said he would have went back in the game possibly if it was a close game for Mason, but I don't necessarily know if that's true. State for N has not been the most upfront team with injuries, as you know. So that'll be an interesting play because I mean, looking down his bench, I mean, ETN's been really, really bad and is, I would say, certainly in a timeshare when he does come back from injury. So he's really down to Najee and Brian Robinson, who both have been pretty solid. I will say that. So,
Yeah.
um, all in all, and he'll get DK Metcalf at some point here, maybe even this week. Interesting. He went with, I mean, he didn't go with Kyler. He went with Darnold, obviously on that Thursday night game. Was it Yeah, Thursday night game. So
Yeah.
interesting play there. But CD, I feel like he got all those points in the second or that second to last drive, or second and third to the last drive. It was wild how many catches he had towards the end of that game. But a stud. And then Trey McBride, I got a highlight too. I mean, right up there, I think with George Kittle, just in terms of production value, and he's got that stack with Kyler. So Kyler starts getting a little bit more consistent on a week to week basis. Overall, he's got a great team. I just do think that there's, maybe some running back holes depending on what happens here, moving forward with Mason and, the reliability on Harris and Robinson Jr. on a week in and week out. We'll see. But all in all, he's got 7 wins in a row and he's sitting on top of the league. So it's got to feel good. Go ahead on Ryan's side. I mean, he got
Yeah.
absolutely decimated with injuries, but I feel like we all have.
Yeah, true. I mean, obviously, just a very bad news with the Godwin injury. Obviously, the week prior. I mean, just the guy's been was unbelievable this year. I mean, no one really expected that high of production. I think. I mean, especially when you have Evans too. The guy had 50 receptions for 576 yards and like 5 touchdowns. I mean, the guy was a beast. So that was a guy it's just like a set it and forget it every week. You plug him in, you have him. And then of course, like, he goes down with an injury, then Ayuk as well. So like even though Ayuk was struggling, still that's a guy that, sure when he was drafting, had high expectations for. And then of course Jameson Williams gets suspended. So really in a tough spot this week against Nils. So forced to start guys like Addison and Dobbs and Pittman Jr., who's been one of the biggest busts in fantasy this season. So as you can see, no issue, no questions about the result here. I mean, I just feel like just those injuries really didn't help. I mean, having Godwin would have been a big step because if Evans was out, okay, Godwin's there, he probably gets like a shootout. I mean, he gets like 20, 25 points, makes it a little more respectable. But yeah, just not very good games. I mean, you had to start Dak going against San Francisco, but I mean, on the road,
Yeah.
But the fact that CD went off, I mean, he's just very tepid performance, not too much off the bench to put in and start. I mean, he could have maybe played Bucky Irving, over Pittman, but at the end of the day, that's semantics because it wouldn't have made a difference anyways. He still would have lost. Yeah, and that's the thing though too. Now, for going forward for Ryan, he's got to hope that Saquon and Henry can carry him for not 12 and 14 is good, but not great. He's expecting more.
Yeah.
They can get 20 points each. That helps a little bit too. But I feel like with those receivers going down, it's going to be tough for me. He's gonna have to hopefully get some production from these receivers. He could get it from Dobbs on occasion. Green Bay likes to spread it around what we're talking about with Reed. But unless, Henry has like a monster game or Saquon has a monster game, like a 25, 30 pointer, more weeks than not, he's gonna be looking on the short end of the point total. And as we see here, he was only at 90 points and he moves to 4-4, but still in the playoff hunt. But I feel like he's trending downward just because of the injuries. No fault in him, of course, but and he goes in against Beef, and of course Beef he's on fire. I mean, 7 in a row. I mean, he's on fire. But it's crazy that like the least, like you said, at least points against, and like he's got almost a little bit more points than Snyder at Snyder's 11. So it's just like not scoring a lot too, but teams are not scoring a lot against him. So he's finding ways to win, and congrats to Beef for the victory and sitting at first place. So
yeah. I mean, the only not the note I would say on Ryan's side, like you just mentioned, I mean, he's got the number 1 and number 2 running backs in fantasy. I mean, so that's a huge cog, obviously, that he's going to have to look at each and every week. And the expectation, obviously, is that, these guys are going to put up, to your point, 20 each is not, that crazy. And we've seen, Derrick Henry do it week in and week out. The guy scores a touchdown every game. So he's on pace for 2,000 yards and 20 touchdowns, probably. I mean, it's pretty unheard of what he's doing. And it's got to feel pretty good to see Mark Andrews after just such a slow start. I mean, in some leagues, potentially droppable, really.
Wow.
That, I mean, he's climbing back up to, the tight end, let's say top 10, top 5 tight ends in the last couple of weeks. I mean, let's just highlight a little bit of the last, yeah, 9, 15, 20, and 14. I mean, those are just, normal numbers for the guy, and he's scoring. I mean, 4 touchdowns in the last, 3 weeks. That's big. And he needs that, obviously, with some of those guys that are going down for him. And, he unless he's going to trade, one of those big pieces to try to maybe round out, a receiver and a running back combo, which Ryan's not known to do. I ribbed him a little bit in the IG posts a little bit, just saying that some of his offers are kind of trash. He's saying he's getting some trash back, but hey, we get what you give in some cases. But yeah, without those two guys and then leaning in on some guys, like really wide receiver two, wide receiver threes, it's going to be tough on a week in and week out basis just to, beat some of these bigger teams. But he's right in the hunt, 4-4, like you mentioned. 7 teams make the playoffs, so anything can happen.
for sure.
Oh, what the heck did I
Oh,
just click?
mm,
Clicked on some ad. Okay.
mm.
Here we go. Let's
Go,
bring him
baby.
in. And I predicted a fake upset. I don't know. I was just feeling it. I didn't necessarily think these totals were going to come out of you guys. I'll say that. I'll do Arby's quick because I'd love for you to get into your own fantasy team and rant a little bit, celebrate a little bit. I mean, at least you get to two and you're still down the bottom of the table, but there's a couple guys that are joining you now, so got to feel a little bit better of your surrounding area, I'll say. Um, I did not. I unfortunately thought you were in doomsday land when I saw Jalen Hurts rush 3 touchdowns in. That was incredible. I mean, after the second one, and then you see the third one, I'm like, oh man, Ant's done. Obviously a close to 40-point effort from a quarterback in the 1 o'clock game. Um, Tough. He had a good outing, obviously, from Cooper Kupp. Everything else is pretty subdued, I would say. The only guy that I do want to highlight, and I just really like this guy a lot, Brian Thomas. I know he's going to be out maybe for a little bit. He practiced limited, so we'll see. I mean, they were saying 2 to 4, but him practicing, who knows? But just watching that Packers game, I mean, they didn't give up much, but he's good. He's a really good player. I mean, LSU produces a lot of good receivers, so I got to give kudos to Arby's there. I really like that pick and kind of diving in a little bit to some of the fantasy rookies that you got to take a swing on every now and again. But yeah, solid effort. I mean, 120 is usually a healthy week for most managers. So a little subdued game from St. Brown. I mean, they had so many points that thankfully he got into the end zone. I mean, for RB's sake, I'll say. But and then Kenneth Walker. I mean, usually he's been a beast for him. That game was just odd. Seattle just they've looked deflated in the last couple weeks with their passing attack. He is getting some passing work, I'll say, as a running back. Um, but yeah, and then he didn't have T Higgins either. So we'll uh we'll see. I think Arby's again. He's in that 4-4 hunt. Yeah, tough week. You kind of. I mean, you exploded this week. Go ahead.
Yeah, much needed. Obviously, we've documented this before. Obviously, last time how hurting I was with the injuries, but just the point totals that I was getting. I mean, even despite the fact that with winning, I mean, I'm still the least points, which is very frustrating. But when you have injuries, of course, we're not going to rehash that again. We know exactly what I was going through, losing my 1 and 2 guys, but just thank God I'm getting a little more help. Help is on the way. Puka Nakua comes back this week, and it was just like, no, it's also this. I mean, I was talking to you about this, and even on Thursday night quiz, I'm like, you're talking to other people. It's just like trying to figure out, oh, do I start Puka? What's going to happen? How is he going to look? You know what I mean? Like that was literally going in because I mean, this is every week feels like a must win for me. I mean, each
Absolutely.
loss pushes me closer and closer to the dress. So I'm like, all right, listen, I can't. Got to just go with it. I'm like, I've been waiting 8 or 9 weeks for this guy to come back. I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to start him. Let's hope that he plays some kind of more snaps than he's supposed to. Didn't expect it. They said he was going to limit him, and he comes back and he got 18 points off the bat, despite the fact that Cooper Kupp scored. You know,
Yep.
Puka Nacua looks healthy and looks like he's back to being the real deal that he was last year. So that was huge start to the week. And then obviously going into the rest of the matchups, of course, like you were saying, the 1 o'clocks. Hurts gets those three. I'm like, oh boy, like he's gonna go off, and I don't think Mahomes is gonna do that because Mahomes has been pretty subdued overall this season.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing like, and every guy was scoring a touchdown, even though like you look at the numbers, it doesn't jump out on the page, but like Brown scores, Laporta scores in that freaking crazy play with Montgomery.
Yeah.
Thomas Jr. scored, Cup obviously scored, Amon-Ra scores, but like luckily, like you were saying about, he didn't really do much besides despite the fact they scored 52, the defense, special teams, the rushing
Yep.
ability. They didn't really need him, but like I kind of dodged the bullet there with him not getting any like volume, and also Kenny Walker too, because I was watching that Buffalo game and like they were driving like, oh boy, here we go. They just picked off Allen. They're going to run it in. Then they had their own blunders themselves. I mean, I think they had like a botched snap. Geno Smith fumbles the ball. It goes back 20 yards. Oh, whatnot. I'm like, oh, good. They're not, because I'm expecting Walker to score. I'm like, oh, I need this. This is insane. Like this, it's gonna be so close. And like, there's nothing worse than like just going down to the wire. But luckily, my team stepped up in huge ways. I mean, just a great performance finally for my team. I mean, this year I've had 3 weeks where I've scored 60 points. I mean, it's just you're not gonna win games scoring 60 points. I mean, that's insane. I mean, 67, 65. Like the week before, I mean, week prior, I mean, I'll touch on that a little bit. I mean, playing Rick, I had Cortland Sutton had 0 points, didn't have a target. He was targeted one time the whole game, and it was like out of bounds, and I think he was a flag or whatever. So like you didn't involve your receiver for your number one receiver, which is probably the reason why I traded him for Khalil Shakir. And lo and behold, I mean, he had a great game, 19 points. I mean, what a huge game for him. He's just becoming like a PPR stud. I mean, he missed one game with an injury, and like the game against the Jets, he didn't do anything, but he's finding ways to like, he catches everything that gets thrown to him. And it's like, and I actually see Brady said this on the broadcast, but I was saying it like basically to myself when I was making the trade. He's like playing the Cole Beasley role from a few years back. Like Cole Beasley,
guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Like you think Cole Beasley, like you're picking him up, man, this guy sucks. I'm like, when I picked him up, I mean, we're not going to go back and look at it, but I'm pretty sure that like he had like almost 80 receptions. I mean, the guy was a PPR guy, and he was a guy that was putting in my flex every week, and he was getting me points. So like I was like, you know what? Kind of a similar thing for me when I made the trade. I was like, this guy just got me 0. I love Cortland Sutton. I've had him previous years, but it's like, the dude, fucking 0. I'm like, they're throwing the ball to Valet and little Jordan Humphrey. I'm like, I'm just gonna make a move. What do I got to lose? It was just like it seems like a win-win for both. I mean, he didn't start him, but like Sutton had 100 yards receiving for
17.
Of course, he comes back. I'm like, when I saw that, I was like, of course, Buffalo, did me a solid there. But I was like, damn. Hopefully, I didn't make the wrong decision. But getting Puka back is huge. Everybody basically scoring double figures. I gotta like it. It was a hell of a matchup. It was definitely close. Got a very you get fortunate too, seeing like I'm on Rolling at 8, but yeah, like my guys like Devontae Smith catches that bomb from Hurts, gets me 20 after the week before getting 0. It's like these are the frustrations. It's like my team is like, every time I feel like I got a pulse, maybe next week it brings me back down to earth because I get some like shitty performances. Like I can't be getting one catch for negative 2 yards from Devontae Smith. Just can't happen. But like getting Puka back is huge. Hopefully, CMC comes back after the bye, and like I can feel better about my chances to like avoid last place. Because like, I mean, yes, every year the goal is to win the league, to win the championship. I would love to make the playoffs. I don't think I'm going to, but at the same time, I gotta like my chances of my team going forward if I get McCaffrey back next week. After the bye. So like it's just I'm trending upward. I have a pulse. Like I might not be dead just yet. So like don't write my obituary. But Finkel's gonna try. He's gonna try his heart out, and great effort. Sorry, Arby's. I take this one, but lot of football left to be played.
Yeah, that's great, Anth. You need to get that off your chest. I've had to feel good. And let's not overlook the fact that you spent some fab. You had a lot of fab to spend. And more to come with. I mean, I overall I didn't know. I would have maybe dropped somebody else besides Kirk Cousins because he's inconsistent. I get why you did it, and you're probably just going to roll with Mahomes for the foreseeable future, and that's fine. I mean, I think what you did was pretty smart, in the sense that, hey, if you're gonna go after Hopkins because your receiving core was kind of hit or miss without Nakua, why not get the quarterback? Because they're gonna look. You would think they're gonna look for each other, and there's no true number one besides Kelsey in Kansas City. So yeah, more to come with that little fab play we'll say from you. And I at first, I mean, you were kind of drowning, but this guy now with Jameson Winston could be a player. He was great last year, obviously, with Flacco. So I mean, I know you get him for this week, you get a bye, but been really nice to kind of lean on another top five tight end, which is kind of where you draft him. You
Yeah.
wanted that player. Stevenson had to hurt. I remember watching that. Just saying to you, like I was like, hey, maybe you want to play
Yeah.
Stevenson. Kind of texting you. But his performance against the Jets the last time was so putrid, and it's really hard to really bet on any New England players. But the only other guy that I wanted to kind of highlight from your team that I kind of like still is Calvin Ridley. I mean, Tennessee's kind of hard to predict just because obviously their quarterback situation is just so putrid. I mean, they only scored 14 points against Detroit, but they're labeling Calvin Ridley as the Jamar Chase in that offense in terms of like the true number one. Now they got rid of DeAndre, obviously. I mean, you got him. It'll be interesting to see moving forward if he's a guy that you can kind of rely on a week to week basis because you got some number ones now. So to your point, I mean, so you got some pieces. I mean, we'll see. I mean, to your point, I think you do have a pulse. You've been scrapping together some kind of junky lineups to try to, at least compete. But when your top three, let's say your top receiver, your top running back, and your top tight end were all out. Yeah, you're looking like you're digging your grave, but not yet, not yet at least.
Sure.
So good win,
Mhm.
good win.
For sure.
Um, let's move on. I'm glad we had you there. Really, I don't know why I picked Pain Train. I thought he might have had the upset this week, but he gets shellacked by the Goose. The Goose is loose. Um, God, man, Aaron's team. For I wouldn't say he. I mean, he's got a title, I think, under his belt, right? So I mean, he's not completely inept in terms of it, but I feel like he's always just like kind of competing, but never necessarily gets there that often, or you're kind of ever that's not necessarily looking up at the Goose. He's always kind of chasing that playoff spot or in the hunt a little bit, but um, I mean, looking down at his roster, I mean, the performances he keeps putting up, he's got a chance this year. I think to really make some noise overall, and he kind of had a ragtag kind of lineup here. I thought kind of looking into the week, so he slots into a subdue game 16, whatever. Jamar Chase is still the number one wide receiver on a points, I think total points or maybe points per game basis.
Mhm.
Either way, awesome. Garrett Wilson's going to be interesting. I did not anticipate the slow start from Devontae at all.
No, either.
And sorry, Snide, but I do love seeing the Jets suck. I will say that. I love Aaron Rodgers. Great, obviously did a number of great things for us over the years. Had some exciting times with him, but um, I certainly didn't really necessarily want him to go to New York and just like light it up. So we'll see. Hopefully they can kind of string it together from a fantasy perspective, but the rest of his team's good. I mean, kind of some underrated names. You mentioned Mixon earlier in terms of that Houston, dynamic with the run game. So I mean, Mixon and Connor, not sexy names, but those guys get it done week in and week out. And then he plays Jerry Jeudy, which I thought was an interesting play. I know, kind of going down the lineup here a little bit. I mean, Deontay, now he's traded. We'll see what happens with him. Doesn't have exactly a lot on his bench. I'll just say that.
No.
And it was interesting they didn't play Purdy. I mean, he traded for him. Purdy's been solid. I know he hasn't really necessarily gave you those 30-point weeks, but other ways, we're kind of looking at it from top down here. It's easy for us to kind of criticize some of it, but he puts up 133. So what the hell does it matter?
Yeah.
But I like Aaron's team a lot. I think he's got a good nucleus in terms of it. I think his tight end spot's a little weak. Um, but hey, there's a lot of managers that don't really have great tight ends. So and then Pittsburgh's D, man, they're tough. They just they're a tough team to get points on. I mean, I think they got to be up there as one of the top. I mean, look at this, double
Yeah.
digits every week. I
It's-
mean, now he's got him a bye this week, but yeah, I think defensively they got to be up there as like the one or two. I mean, besides Minnesota for those first couple weeks, but
hmm.
you're getting double digits out of your defense every week. That's just nice to add on top. So, um, and then Train. I mean, Train's Train, man. I mean, he makes a couple moves, and I thought the trade was an interesting one. I mean, what's your take on the Train trade? I mean, he gets Burrow, he gets Debo, and Evan Ingram, his boy. I mean, Evan Ingram's great though. I mean that I kind of knocked him a little bit in the text just about how much he loves Evan Ingram because I do recall the podcast that we had Rick and I think Logan called in on. Maybe still one of the hottest pods that we've had to date in terms of views. Um, that Logan was just saying how enamored Sny was with Evan Ingram during that trade. So, what do you take? I mean, I think it was a good trade for both parties. I'll say.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, I mean, I think last time I was on the pod here, I mentioned how like the nucleus of Neighbors, Nico Collins, and AJ Brown was a hell of a trio. I mean,
Yep.
obviously, he's plugging in Tank Bigsby because ETN's an affecting this and injury. So like, but his RB spot, Tyjae Spears on his bench, you know, didn't really. I mean, of course, he's gotten. We'll talk about Tracy in a moment, but like as far as the trade
Yep.
goes, very interesting. And Andre likes to basically blow up his team every single year. We know what to expect with Dre. Much love to Dre. He loves to trade. He's like the
Loves to
biggest
trade.
trader in the league. So
Yep.
this was a blockbuster in the sense of some of the names. But it's funny, he makes the trade and then immediately drops Richardson and immediately drops Ertz. So it's like I don't know how to like value it, so to speak, in a sense of like the main piece was obviously AJ Brown. He gets his eagle on his team. I like the haul that Snyder got back. I feel like Snyder got a better,
Me too.
those three guys are better, but I still feel like maybe he's looking. I'm sure he was looking for a running back, for much of the year. I mean, maybe he looks into it in the sense of Tracy. Tracy seems like he is the guy.
Definitely.
I'm a Singletary owner, but in that game, it was no question. These last two games, well, this game, of course, the production wise, but he's definitely the starter. But he got a concussion. But maybe
Yep.
that's why he's like, okay, I got something with Tracy here. If I could plug in Jacobs and Tracy, and Tank Bigsby, on my bench. I mean, he's probably thinking Bigsby's going to take over. Bigsby has looked good. Tank has looked great when he's been in the lineup. But yeah, I feel like Snyder got a good deal in the sense of what he got back in the trade. Like he's got it on his roster. He's starting Burrow. He's starting
Yep.
Debo. He's starting Evan Ingram. So, and he's got T.J. Hawkinson. If T.J. Hawkinson can come back and look the
Yep.
way he looked before his injury, he could even think about flexing both. I mean, like it's not we don't
Yeah.
see it a lot in this league because the tight end position is a joke. But with the injury to Christian Kirk, if Thomas Jr. misses some games, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't miss any games.
Sure.
Ingram's a guy that's going to get fed the ball a lot, and he can play. Hawkinson comes back to speed, and he's going to look pretty good. So I still like Train's team. It's a tough loss, and he's sitting at 11th, but I don't think he's the second worst team in the league. I just don't. I feel like he has a good team. I mean, he gets Nico Collins back, and if Neighbors can continue his production that he was doing before, it's tough. Having Danny Jones as your quarterback sucks, and like if they
Yeah.
can't protect Danny Jones with that, the injuries they have to their line, it might be tough to get Malik Neighbors the ball. He wants to get him the ball. He had a
Sure.
subdued relatively. He didn't score, but he still had 14 points. Nico and Neighbors, you lose AJ Brown, still two guys that are really good. You got Debo, who's he's got to stay healthy too. He
Yep.
always seems to get banged up every single year. So like, is that a
Yep.
guy that's going to play the rest of the season, not getting hurt? I don't really think so, but like, remains to be seen. But like, he can continue getting that production from those guys. You'll have a pretty good a chance here to get back in the swing of things and get switch the record could flip flop. He can get a couple wins in a row, but unfortunately, just couldn't find a way to beat the Goose. And Aaron's got to look got to like his chances going forward. Like that flex spot starting Judy. He gets him 12, but I feel like he's like you said, not a really great bench, but if he can get Mixon keep scoring 20 plus and every guy keeps going the way
Yep.
he's going with Connor and Wilson and Jamar, he'll still be in the thick of things. But we'll see what happens going forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, from the Snyder takeaway, it's funny being on some of these pods. I think it might have been the last pod that Sny and I did. kind of looking at some of the quarterbacks, we were saying like Baker. Now, Jordan Love's hurt, so obviously I wouldn't necessarily want to trade Baker yet. But the Joe Burrow, with Jaden Daniels was another, manager that could have made some moves. And, to your point, I do think that Andy needed some pieces, especially with some of the losses that he's unfortunately had with Bryce, and kind of looking to maybe fill in some spots there. I don't think he got back as much as he gave away, to your point. Time will tell. I think AJ Brown is still a horse, and getting rid of Debo, who is tough to rely on week to week. Joe Burrow, he wasn't really necessarily going to play anyways because Jaden Daniels has been so good, and Evan Ingram, for his sake, I guess, was expendable because, but I do think that piece you could have got something maybe a little bit more back, like to your point again with Ertz and, Richardson was a throwaway at this point. I mean, Snide will say it. He said it in the text messages to us as well. We'll highlight it again. Probably one of the biggest, easily the worst keeper and one of the biggest disappointments so far in fantasy. I
Yeah,
mean,
by far.
Richardson's been bad. So, Train's unfortunate to be 2-6, but you know, no one's pitying him. He's got a good team, but he's got to put up a win together.
Yeah, I gotta say it's kind of crazy how like you make a trade and you immediately drop two of the three guys and you make trade four, which is insane. But hey, I mean, and there might be a method to the madness, Obviously, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But it didn't really help in this week, as you can see, with the game against Phil.
Yeah, Phil, man, what an explosion! Actually, this was the most points I think
Yeah, it was.
this week by just a couple. Yeah, over Riggs. So um, you kind of what you kind of go down his team, and I liked his matchup. I just thought looking at looking at Andy's roster, like that once he basically hits his mark at 116. I mean, he's right at his projections.
Yeah.
I mean, Phil just blows it out of the water, and then your former Captain Kirk, um, he loves playing against Tampa, man. If he could play against Tampa every week, he'd be a number one QB in the league. But good pickup. I mean, Phil's been playing the carousel as well, like you. I know he threw some fab at Mahomes, so I was kind of expecting him to go pick up Cousins. I mean, there's not a lot of guys that really wanted him or needed him, I should say. So, kind of an easy pickup for him, and he gets 4 passing touchdowns. I mean, 37 is a hell of a week from your quarterback. Terry McLaurin still be doing his thing. I mean, they're a high powered offense with Jaden Daniels, and they're good. Washington's good.
Yeah.
They're right in the hunt for that division. I think seeing Bijan get 23, that had to feel pretty nice. Just in the sense that he was he was involved. I feel like on every possession. I mean, Algier still got his touches here and there. Wasn't as productive with him, but this is the Bijan that you expect as a top 5 pick. I mean, you want 20 plus every week. You want touchdowns, and he hasn't had a lot of touchdowns. I mean, what does he have on the year? I mean, he has 4 rushing, so 5. I mean,
Yeah.
subdue for 8 weeks. I mean, but he gets that, and then this guy's been having a renaissance year. I mean, Aaron, who just loves Kyle Pitts, has to be kicking himself. I mean, over the last couple of weeks, I mean, this guy's back a little bit. He catches 2. I mean, that's kind of an anomaly, but hey, 15, 10, 13, 25. Now he's got the stack a little bit with Cousins, so he's got to be feeling pretty good about that. He's going all Atlanta, which is an interesting play, but
Yeah.
um, that's we'll see. Time will tell with that. Let's see what his bench does because I mean Jalen Waddle, I can't believe he got 8. I didn't even realize that. Olave, okay,
Bo Nix. Even if you started Bo Nix, his original pick, he had 35 points. They went
that
off.
would have been good.
Yeah.
Yeah, hell of a week from Phil. I mean, Andy, man, he's just reeling. I mean, he gets his full lineup in. I mean, we'll kind of touch on it, I guess, a little bit here, and just these Brees Hall, the Jets just failed him. I think this week. You know what I mean? I mean, 117 is a good number. You needed a big week to beat Phil, so can't knock him too much. But damn, dude, the Jets, they just are not getting it done. And the fact that Devontae Adams has been so subdued 2 weeks in a row, going over there with Aaron. When's it going to click? I mean, they got a Thursday night game against Houston now, so I mean, that's this is going to be a big week to see what they end up doing. But yeah, it's it was probably nice to see Achan kind of do his thing, and two is definitely a huge piece for that offense as a whole. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, to your point again, we're going to harp it a little bit, but yeah, I feel like this was his lineup, and this is AJ Brown was just the piece he wanted to get in there. You know what I mean? He had the rest of his lineup pretty set.
Oh, for sure. I mean, like you pretty much nailed it in everything you said there. I mean, I know the week prior he had started Debo and Debo got him zero because he had you didn't really know he had the illness
Pneumonia.
or whatever. So
Yep.
like, oh, that was a piece of the puzzle. I mean, obviously you're pretty much switching him with with AJ Brown. And you get to AJ Brown, and I mean AJ Brown is a stud. He's their number one guy. He didn't score a touchdown this game, but that's a guy that you can feel safe. Obviously he's a number one receiver in Philly. He's definitely, I mean, top five. I mean, I don't know if he's top five over in the league. It's everyone's opinion, but I feel like as
He's been
far as
hurt a
like
couple
maybe not
weeks
maybe
too.
not production, but I mean as far as like okay, maybe not production, but I feel like he's a better receiver than. Oh, that's two. That's okay. That's weak. That's weak. Okay, I see that now.
This I just changed it to average. So I mean,
Okay.
because obviously he missed a couple games, but
Yeah.
yeah, he's number two on average. So I mean,
Yeah.
to your point, when he plays, he gets points.
Yeah, that's the guy that he goes to a lot. That's why, like, it's a great trade in the sense of who he got. It just like, yeah, it just didn't work out for him this week. And like Phil said with the cap and not like he had a win. It's a big win. I mean, of course, like the teams that are up at the top, like the 7-1s, the 6-2s, they can have a loss and really not affect them as much. But
Yep.
guys like us, me, Phil, now Snyder and Steve, Rick, excuse me, we're all on that in the 2-6 range now. Like every seems like every week is a must win like I was saying before. So he puts up a hell of a performance and he gets the victory. I mean, he obviously Kirk Cousins plays Tampa Bay all the time. He plays great, but I feel like he's not going to consistently do that going forward. At least I hope he doesn't, because like I mean, I drafted him. I always wait for a quarterback. I drafted him where I drafted him, not thinking he was going to go off. I mean, I didn't. He's pretty much revived Darnell Mooney's and Kyle Pitts. To be honest,
Absolutely.
Kyle Pitts has been one of the biggest busts as a tight end for a guy that's picked so high in the draft, in the real draft, in the NFL draft, and then like Mooney, who like really floundered the last couple of years in Chicago, albeit with a pretty shitty quarterback so for throwing the ball.
Yeah.
Comes out of nowhere and he's playing great. So I mean, just he's got to like what he got from them, but we'll see what happens. Big win for him. So he's with points wise, he's got 916 points, Phil.
He's
So
right there.
but
Yeah.
the fact
Most
that like and he's got his record and people like to pick against him and when you're looking at the matchups, but like he finds a way to beat Andre. So good win for him.
Yeah, I mean, and adversely from B side, we're just looking at the standings here for, real quick. He's got the most points against Phil. So, I mean, he's,
Yeah.
you know, only guy that's suffered 1,000 points plus so far through week 8. So, yeah, tough sledding. But yeah, big win, like you mentioned. So, we'll see. I mean, we're getting into, like you said, some separation. I do think there's a couple of those 2-6 teams, as we mentioned, that are starting to kind of turn a little bit of the tide. But, adversely, there's, a couple teams that are in that 4-4 and 3-5 threshold that, just a couple wins and, you guys are right back in the hunt, so it looked bleak for a few of you guys just record wise, but, you getting a little bit healthier. Train's got a good roster, Ship Blizzard's got a good roster, and Columbian White, like we just mentioned. So the 4-2-6 teams look like they're dead in the water a little bit record wise, but they're not far off. You guys are two back from the 5, 6, and 7 spots. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's every week it's ever changing now. So but I want to highlight just a couple fab offers because I thought some of these this week were a little outrageous.
Woo!
Yeah, I mean, Ship Lizard, I guess, just panicked. Cedric Tillman's not a bad play by any means. We can see here that there's 3 other managers that threw, some fab on him. He is, I think, maybe the number 2. That's in Cleveland, which I don't know. I mean, I know he was drafted high. I think he's a rookie, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But 69, good number. Very good number, Rick.
69.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
that's why
clever. Right?
that's a very cheeky Ship Blizzard. I know what you did there.
Guy's always got something up his sleeve. I'm telling you. But yeah, so I thought that was certainly eye opening this morning to see that, but equally as eye opening and I, he says that it was because of the Yankees game last night, but he still had to type in the zero, I think. So $50 for Washington's defense. Now is the official highest fab bid for a defense this year. I think what was Steve's 40 something?
It's close to that number. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
tough to remember. Like it's without looking at it real quick. I mean,
close. Yeah,
yeah, if I can do that while you're talking, but like yeah,
yeah, yeah. But that to that, seeing 40 or $50 thrown on the defense, um, that was interesting.
50,
We'll
50
just
it was a 50 burger in Minnesota.
ah
So that's it
two
was
50 burgers.
which is
Wow.
crazy. I mean, like basically for a matchup, yeah, okay, the matchup against the Giants, you're expecting a lot of sacks, but 50 is insane. I mean, I don't really think I don't know why you would do that intentionally. It would blow all your fab, most of your fab on a defense, unless you had no other options or alternatives. But yeah, I don't understand it. But hey, you know, we'll see what happens. Maybe they have 30 points tonight. They score two defensive touchdowns and it helps them. But 50 seems very, 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 very puzzling to me. But see what happens.
Yeah, those are the only two I really wanted to obviously highlight. And then Ertz, he gets dropped, and the Goose pick him up because his tight end spot is lacking. So
Yeah, no, good.
let's run through quickly. We'll just go through the predictions. I went 3-3. Actually, my worst week in predictions, maybe because we weren't on the pod, but
Yeah.
brings me to 24-12. Not a bad record overall. So kind of happy about that. We'll see where we get to kind of moving forward here. We'll start with me. I get I get the Arby's guide this week. Please do not send me any sandwiches. I don't need anything sent to me. So we'll avoid that um, for the weekend. But TBD on my side, I guess, that my lineup's my lineup. I don't really have many changes besides maybe contemplating Jordan Love. Probably not going to play him, although I don't really love the matchup with Baker at KC on Monday night. Obviously missing some weapons. Um, with Godwin and Evans not really expecting to come back until after their bye week. So yeah, we'll see. Don't love that matchup as much, but the rest of my guys are my guys. I mean, they're I'm very top heavy, as I've said numerous times in terms of my starting lineup. So um, this is kind of it. I mean, going over to RB side, I mean, I think T Higgins is going to be a huge piece for him this week because if he doesn't play, I was looking at his team. I don't think he has many options. I mean, he's got Thomas, but he might not play. And then after that, it's like, good luck. I mean, I don't really know who else. I mean, he hasn't really, who else is he going to play? McMillan, maybe. I mean, I don't.
I wouldn't risk.
So yeah, he really needs, either Higgins or Thomas to play this week to, I think, solidify that, that flex spot, if you want to call it. So, a little early. It's only Wednesday. Still some practices to go, but I'm gonna take myself. I like some of the matchups that I have this week with some of my guys. I mean, Jefferson at home against Indy on Sunday night. He's been cooking. Drake London, I think he's got to get back. Kind of a get back game. I think going against Dallas. They're home as well. I mean, he's been really solid. Zay Flowers is going to be an interesting one. I don't think Deontay comes in this week and says, "Hey, I'm the guy." Zay Flowers has still been great, and um, he's kind of hit or miss, but overall he's been really solid. He just doesn't score. So I mean, PPR is great, and then I love my running backs this week. I mean, Swift at Arizona, they're funnel for. They were a little bit more resistant this past week, but they've been kind of a funnel. And then, James Cook's been great. He's at home against Miami, so I'm gonna pick me. I've been kind of flip flopping most weeks, but I'm gonna go Green Bull this week.
Yeah, no, this is a tough matchup. Like looking at it, like to predict who's going to win this one, I feel like there's a couple other matchups that are like you look at projections, you might sway you in one way, and that doesn't really sway me ever. Looking at projections, like picking who I think was going to win, and just like you look at matchups, like you said, injuries, not too many, definitely no injuries to note on your end. I mean, the only thing on it right now is flex. T Higgins is day to day, so if you hear that, it's like if he plays, course, chance of reaggravation of the injury, but you feel like he's definitely a huge piece of that offense. So like, I feel
Yeah.
like, and Thomas being, it's like that question mark, that flex question mark that what if both guys don't play, what I mean? And because of that, I'm going to give you the slight edge. However, if one of those guys if one of the guys does play, let's say they both out, 100%, I'm going to pick you just because that
Yeah.
we put in that flex spot. It might not even matter if those guys go off, but like if not, if one of those guys does play, maybe I give the edge back to him just because I feel like it's going to be an Amon Ra game where
Yeah.
they're going to target him a lot. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know a little bit more better than I do sometimes because like I mean, I think you're more in tune with the defense as well for a Green Bay side in the sense that does Jair shadow him? I don't know if Jair does play. I don't know. It looks like he's banged
Yeah.
up, so
I don't anticipate Jair playing, which
mm,
is kind of frustrating, because they do always err on the side of caution. So he didn't practice again a couple more days, but yeah, I don't know. They move Amon Rob around a lot. I think in terms of like the slot and stuff like that. So we'll see. I don't think if Jair plays that he's going to get him the whole game. But he's got a couple stacks with a couple different offenses. Chase Brown and Higgins, and then St. Brown and Laporta. So we'll see.
mhm.
I think it's going to be a tight game. To your point, I think the flex is gonna make or break Arby's matchup,
Yeah,
or Arby's lineup, I should say, in this matchup.
but definitely expecting a huge. I just feel like Amon Ra's going to have. It's going to be a 10 catch, 100 yard touchdown performance. I mean, I don't know who's going to win that game. Jordan Love plays. I mean, the Packers are home. I like the chances, but if he doesn't play, I expect a big game from him. So that could be a huge reason why he could win the matchup against you. But we'll see.
Yep, yep, yeah. I mean, a lot hinges on if the Packers have Jordan Love and they're competitive offensively too.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, here we go. This is a really big matchup in just terms of standings and big get right game for both managers, to be honest with you. So I'm gonna take a look here. I didn't really. This is the first time looking at everybody's teams.
Yeah, I know. Especially it's train side. We're talking about the last week's matchup. We are talking about. I was just mentioning about Hawkinson. He's got him slid. He slid him in already.
Slides him in. He's got Tracy if he does play. He's playing Worthy, I think, because I mean Debo's on bye, so
Yeah.
and Jacobs, he already said he's playing this week, even though he was a little banged up towards the end of the game there. So I mean that's his team right there. He's got to play the Jets D against Houston, who hasn't, like I said, hasn't been a juggernaut, and they're really only going to have Tank Dell essentially in terms of that passing offense. So
Mm.
we'll see. On the flip side of it, I mean, goes with Coleman, who I like. Mostert, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I don't know if he can rely on Mostert um, to score every week, but he is the goal. It seems to be that he's the goal line guy, right? And then he's got Nick Chubb in his flex, which that's basically his team until Evans gets back.
Oh yeah,
So,
that's tough.
hmm,
Big,
interesting.
big loss for Diggs.
I'm a little surprised that he's not playing Evan Ingram, to be honest with you. That he's not. If Thomas sits, that he's not going to go play with Dodgers one. Tough.
Wow.
I think
Dang.
so. Yep. Well,
Breaking
breaking
news.
news. Yeah.
Congratulations, to the LA Dodgers.
Yeah. Fuck both of them.
Fuck.
All right. Well, I'm gonna. I think I'm gonna side with Train. I picked him a couple times and he's lost, but I'm gonna go with A Train. Who do you
Yeah,
like?
this is tough too because like I see I see some
Oh
holes
shit.
in
I,
both.
I totally jumped the gun, by the way. That was only the end of the eighth. Sorry, could barely see it on the little ticker here.
Wah, wah,
Sorry.
wah.
Oh well, no one's listening to this for that. All right,
Exactly.
anyways, go ahead.
Exactly. But yeah, like it's just like this like injuries and whatnot. And we mentioned obviously in the recaps of the previous weeks. I mean, it's very very yeah. You got some holes in some spots for both teams. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if Tracy, there is no guarantee that Tracy plays. I mean, if he does play, but with the concussion, he's in the concussion protocols. That's big. I mean, he just slides in Tank Bigsby. It doesn't really hurt him. I don't really like Xavier Worthy. Um, I mean, obviously, I have Mahomes, so I want to see them involve everybody. But like, as far as someone that's going to get you a
Hey,
lot,
targets.
I mean, it hasn't been terrible. You know what I mean? He's a rookie. Maybe that week one game, you thought, okay, the play that he had, the score was amazing. Oh, this guy's going to be
Yep.
a stud. And of course, what a different team that they look like now. I mean, they started with Rasheed Rice and Hollywood Brown, and now they don't have those guys, and they have fucking Pacheco too, of course. But to long story short, I mean, it's by the slimmest of margins, I guess. I'm not really confident, but I'm going to say Logan gets out of the. He's lost four in a row, I think. So like, I feel like he
Yeah.
needs it desperately, and desperate times calls for desperate measures, buddy, and it's no better week than now. So, Baratheon's bastards are gonna sneak out with a victory. I just feel like they will. I don't know why. I just feel like because he needs a win, and sometimes it just works out like that. But I mean, his outlook going forward doesn't look the greatest. But I mean, as long as he gets Evans back, he gets Evans back, coming back, and Chop comes back to speed. He'll still be there, like I said earlier. So.
Yep. No, I like that. Let's go to here. I mean, the first place team against guy coming off a pretty hot week in terms of Colombian White. And projections got this one real lopsided. I guess we're gonna kind of go through it here. I mean, Mason's on bye, Harris is on bye. Is he gonna go? I mean, I guess he's gonna go Sam Darnold. That's an interesting play. I mean, he's got the stack. I mean, Chicago's D has been pretty solid. I will say that. So I mean, could definitely change by Sunday. Um, Kind of looking down here. I mean, Phil's got a lot of points projections. I'll tell you that.
Mhm.
That's basically his lineup. I mean, he's slotted in Olave. I mean, that's his team. Wow, this is
Well, if I'm just gonna, I'll just go on and say it. Finkel's upset special of the week.
yeah. I'm gonna
Colombian
go with it
White,
too.
yeah, Colombian White finally stops the creek. The streak is
Yeah,
over. Like,
yeah. The Creek's got a tough. He's gonna play the stack of tight ends, which I mean, I don't think we've seen it too often, if not any at any point this year so far. But
well, I like it.
just with bye weeks, yeah, Tucker Kraft's awesome. I drafted him like an idiot and dropped him, but um, it's I think Colombian White's got a real strong team, and I like looking at the matchups and like projections. I'm like, he's accurate, but I mean, who he's playing against? Yeah, I mean these guys can definitely his team can definitely get to 116. I mean,
Yeah.
Nils is going to need some big points. I mean, DK's not necessarily guaranteed to play. ETN, he's going to have to play this week if he plays.
Mhm.
And then the double tight end. Yeah, I agree. I think yeah, it's one of those weeks. I mean, Nils, it's a bye week, right? I mean, you got a bye week and you got some injuries, so you're gonna have to just play who you got. But yeah, I like Colombian White as well. So
Sure. Hate to see it with him being above me in the standings, but I mean, I need a lot more points to start worried about people in front of me as we segue into my matchup with the
yeah,
Goose.
oh, another top
Uh,
team playing a bottom feeder right now. But
and
uh, let's take a look at this. This is a pretty tight projection so far. Let's take a look here. I mean, you know your team pretty well. I mean, go ahead. I mean, what do you think? I mean, what are your lineup thoughts? Who do you have to play? I mean, it kind of is what it is. It looks like for the most part.
yeah,
I mean, you don't probably can't play Ridley.
yeah, no, like he came at it. I mean, of course, like obviously with the Hopkins trade, it frees up, his targets. But like just seeing when I had to start him get like one, and then like he had like one and one. Like, he had like three weeks where like he was just like the 100th or 89th receiver out of fantasy. Like it was so frustrating. And it's like they were throwing a ball to Nick Westbrook, Akine, and like some random. And I think Josh Reynolds plays for the Broncos, but there's another like random scrub that was getting the ball, and like Hopkins was getting some targets too. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, of course they were mentioning it too. Like, he had that bad game and he was pissed off about it. And they're, obviously with Rudolph as their quarterback, they try to get in the ball. But like, I don't see me changing too much. It's not set in stone like what my flex could be. I mean, I got to keep Ryan Shakir. I think, like, I mean, he's been doing pretty well. So like, I
Yeah, I
don't
think your receivers are your receivers. Kind of looking at it here. I mean, you can't take out Devontae.
know.
Puka obviously is your number one. You're never going to take him out. And
Yeah,
then
those guys.
Shakir, like you said, it's kind of been your guy. And then you can't play White. Kansas City just doesn't give up any yards. I mean, they're in terms of rushing. I mean, they got a pretty good defense, Kansas City overall. So, um, yeah, I think this is your lineup. Yeah, hopefully Houston's defense is decent against the Jets. I mean, that's the only takeaway. I mean, he's doesn't have a really strong defense either with Tennessee, but um, damn, this is going to be a tight one. I think. I mean, he's got a couple of guys that maybe can pop a little bit. I mean, Garrett Wilson's going to be a huge start for him. If he gets off to a slow start with Garrett Wilson, it's going to be tough. I like his
Yeah.
running backs, although James Conner against Chicago, we'll see. Um, and then I mean, he's playing Hunter Henry, so and he's got to go with Judy again. Looks like. Yeah, he's probably not going to go with Deontay this week for sure, and that's really it. The rest of his team's pretty stinky in terms of bench. Um, I got Finkel going on a little 2 game win
Oh
streak.
wow! Look at that, baby. Back to back. The Green brothers, back to back weeks. I mean, it's interesting because like I want to pick myself so badly because like it's like it's my team and like I'd like the fact that I get these guys back. Maybe in a reverse jinx, I'm gonna say Aaron's gonna beat me. So I'm gonna pick Aaron in this
Be
matchup
tight.
because like I mean yeah, that's how it goes. Every time I feel good about maybe I get like a winning streak. But the reason why I say that is I'm looking forward to the next week. I'm looking forward to when I get Christian McCaffrey back. Like if he comes back and he comes plays his full complement of snaps, like I feel like I might run the table. And then
Uh,
I hope so. I hope I can get like a streak on like starting next week. I feel like I'm one week away from getting that win streak going. I mean, I think I lose this week, but I mean, I love to pick myself, and I mean, I could still win, but like, let's do the reverse jinx. Let's do that.
I like it. I like it. I think it's gonna be a really tight one. I think this is essentially between the two. Oh, this is gonna be a high scoring affair.
Oh,
At least from the projections. All right, Andre, come on. I need you to take down Steve. Let's see what Steve's got going. Kind of the same lineup. Kittle's on by though. He's gonna slide. Kate Otton's been awesome. I mean, he's
yeah, yeah,
basically their number one player, or number one receiver, I should say, with those guys going down. He's gonna play your guy Cortland Sutton this week as
look at
well.
uh,
He's leaving Dobbins out. Yeah, Cleveland's a tough matchup. Pickens is on by, so yeah, this is pretty much Steve's team. I mean, Andy's again. I mean, I keep highlighting the Thursday night games because the king of the Thursday night scaries, knows it. I mean, he needs Devontae to finally have a good game for him. He's kind of been stringing him along all season. I have shares of Devontae in another league. I mean, this has been a pretty rough go of it, for a guy that was drafted, in the what 2-3 range probably, in most leagues. So yeah, he's going to need a good start from him, and Brees really. I don't know. I'm going to go with Dre just because I don't want to pick Steve.
yeah. It's tough, like you said. Like projections seem very high for Andre. I mean, he's
Yep.
obviously Jay Daniels is just a beast, a stud. I mean, he's great. I love him. Have him in the Pinos League. Just love him. Great draft. Great job drafting him. Of course, definitely a keeper option for him. I mean, I like Chan. It really hinges on the Thursday night game. I have Houston's D. I didn't change them. I'm hoping that they don't have a good game so I can get some points. Maybe just by saying that, I'll pick Steve, I guess, because he's got two Jets position players. But I
Yep.
feel like Devontae. I feel like this could be a game where they're playing at home. Devontae has a better game. Devontae starts to get acclimated more because if not, you really got to question Aaron Rodgers after if he can't get it together. I'm saying this game for sure. They got to question the fantasy relevance of Adams going forward, but like I could be
Yep.
wrong. But like you just 2-7. I mean, they just don't have it. I mean, it's frustrating. I'm sure I mean, Brees Hall's great. I had Brees Hall last year. He was a beast. I mean, I wish I could have kept the same player 2 years in a row. I would have loved to keep Brees Hall because he was the man. But like, just a very
Yeah.
very
They'll
not,
the
not
only note that I'll chime in quick on Brees Hall though is that like it's they phased out. It's weird. Like they phased out Braylon Allen for a little bit, and then like last week he like got run again. So like I don't know. It's as a Brees Hall owner, like you got to hate seeing that. He had these weeks right here where 21 26, and then
yeah.
kind of a subdue 9 game, and then you see the guy, Braylon Allen got in the end zone, I think, last week. So it's like, it's frustrating when you have a guy that is a horse like Brees Hall, and then he's capable of, and you need that 17. Like he needs 17 out of Brees Hall to like kind of get it going and beat a team like Steve. Now Steve's got a couple guys on by. So I mean, you get him on a good week. Obviously, I mean, he's not normally playing Cortland Sutton. I mean, we just mentioned he's not bad, but and he gets Kate Otten, who right time, right place. I mean, he's been got to be in the top 5 tight ends in the last couple of weeks, especially with those guys going down. So I like it. I like the split. So you're going Riggs and I'm going Dre.
Yeah, I just think based on who I have, like I mean, defense could be insignificant in my matchup. I mean, maybe it doesn't make a difference if they score 2 points or 10, but I'm just going with that based on that.
God, shit, Blizzard. He needs a win. He desperately needs a win. The
Yeah.
$69 guy is not in his lineup. We'll leave that out.
Oh,
Cedric Tillman is going to be grabbing some pine. Interesting though. I mean, a tough matchup. I mean, he's not playing Lad McConkey either. I thought maybe he might be floating him out there. He's going with his boy Downs, who does get Joe Flacco checking it. Even though they're playing a pretty tough Minnesota team on a primetime game, but um, kind of looking here. I mean, Tiburon. I don't think Downs or Pittman practice. It's only Wednesday, so I guess more to come. Pittman's, as you mentioned earlier in that, like just been such a disappointment. And he's going to go with Romeo, who I love. I was hyping Romeo Dobbs up last year to I think Andy and a couple guys during the draft when I picked him. So and Jordan Addison. So a lot of good. That Sunday night game is going to be interesting for this matchup for sure.
yeah.
Um, and I mean, Chip Blizzard's got a bunch of Sunday night games and a couple Monday night guys. So got the defense and Kelsey going. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go shit Blizzard. I'm picking the shit.
Oh yeah. No, that's fair. Definitely fair. I mean, I'll probably do the same. I feel like, obviously the flex, Pittman Jr., Addison, and Dobbs. I mean, they're not gonna. I mean, they might luck out and maybe they score, but like it depends on like if Jordan Love plays, Dobbs his value goes up a little bit. But I feel like with Malik Willis, they're not looking to like stretch the field. I mean, it might be short throws to Jaden Reed, a lot of runs to Jacobs. I mean, they're gonna have to rely on their run game and
Yep.
on Rick's end. I mean, with Diggs out, I mean, this is Tank Dell's time to shine. Tank Dell, step up. This is your time to shine. It's you're basically on an island there. I mean, besides like okay, they run the ball with Mixon. They got Dalton Schultz. They got fucking Bobby Trees, who hasn't been relevant in a few years. I mean, Tank Dell really needs to step up, and I think he needs to have a 20-point performance. And like that would just be a great start for Rick. And then like he's got to love how Montgomery's playing. I mean, Montgomery's going to have at least one or two touchdowns. I feel like it's going to be a shootout in Green
Yep.
Bay. Love plays, or even if he doesn't play, Detroit's going to put up a lot of points. I just have that feeling because they just put up 52. So yeah, I just feel like Rick's got lot to like about his lineup and his matchups. And then, like I said earlier, Ryan's got to really hope that Barkley and Henry have those 20, 25, or 30-point games because
Yep.
without having that from them, I think he takes the loss here.
Yeah, I agree. I'm also really interested to see what Rick's going to send Ryan if he sends him anything this week. He's usually a pretty good fiend guy. I mean, obviously, I got a very nice gift out of him this week with the shredder. So I'm interested to see if he's actually going to maybe ship him a shark. I don't know. Who knows what Rick's capable of anymore? So, yeah, I'm definitely interested to see what plays out that in terms of the mind games that Rick likes to play. But I think Rick, I feel like I picked every 2-6 team this week. So I don't know. That's an interesting play by me. I got Train, I got Colombian White, I got you, and I got Chip Blizzard. So
Wow,
um, maybe things are gonna get a little more jumbled this week. We'll see.
definitely.
But yeah, those are the predictions I should say for week 9, and the league is getting real interesting. I will say that. We kind of touched on it a little bit. It's there's a four 2-6 teams like I mentioned earlier. There's a top four that are 6-2 and 1-7-1 team. So outside of those top four, I mean I think those are relatively locked and barring anything like crazy in terms of injuries. Um, just in terms of like maybe not necessarily the top four spots, but certainly four teams that are going to make the playoffs. Roster wise, I think they're pretty good bets. But the next three seeds for playoffs is going to get real interesting in the next call it 6 weeks here. So
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny, like going. I feel like in years past, but definitely last year, like I mean, I'll speak from experience from last year because I thought I had the best team, but like pretty much most of the season, you kind of saw like okay, you had to pick who the best team was because we did a lot of that last year too. I mean, we haven't done it really this year, but like rankings of like who like for
yeah,
one through 12, who's the best team? Like I feel like I can't pick like if you ask me who the best team was, I really can't say. I mean, I feel like it's so tight. It's very tight. I feel like even
good
despite
point.
what the records say, I can't be like, okay, Green Bull has the best team. Well, I mean, then you can make a case for another team. I really can't say it. I feel
Yeah,
like this is the other league is wide open. So guys,
Yeah,
teams that are 2-6, teams that are 4-4, everyone has a chance, really. I mean, I feel like anybody has a chance to like go on a streak and get some wins. And I feel like that's unless like injuries happen. I mean, that's my personal opinion. I feel like in the other years, you could be like, oh, this guy had the best team. You know what I mean? Or Logan had a team when Mahomes was fucking throwing 5,000 yards and Zeke was
yeah,
scoring 20 touchdowns. He had the like number one seed, lost to me. Like just as an
yeah.
example, I know for myself. You know what I mean? But like
Sure, sure.
my team, like it's like so it's and you had a great team too when you had I think it was for Chase and whatnot. It's just like I'm
Yeah.
just kind of slipping a little bit trying to remember, but yeah, it's
No,
wild.
no. I think that's a great take. I mean, there's a lot more like parity in the league this year for sure. Just in terms of who you think is the number one seed, like you just mentioned. I mean, there's no clear cuts. I think even like points, like for like the overall points is going to be interesting too. I mean, there's not a clear cut guy out there either. I mean, there's a couple of teams that are, I think the Goose and Riggs are right out there. But they're not far ahead. I mean, it just takes 1 week to pop, and you get them by 40 points, you catch them. So, yeah, I think to your point, there's a lot of parity. It's going to be interesting because it's kind of nice to not have a clear cut like best team. They're
Yeah.
everyone feels like each week they have a shot. I mean, Phil had record wise, you guys had the worst records, you and Phil, and you guys both put up 130 plus. So,
Yeah.
it's a lot of good. Maybe we're all getting better at managing. I don't know. But everyone's got pretty decent teams. It'll be interesting in the next couple of weeks to kind of decipher it. I will want to go back and touch on one thing before we leave. Snyder and I obviously are not. I mean, overall, I've been actually pretty decent at gambling, but my takes last week sucked because Jordan Love got hurt. They did not cover the 3.5. And then Houston, who I thought was going to cover the 4.5, fumbles, almost loses the game,
Yeah.
and ends up only winning by 3. So I went 0-2 in my bets. Snyder went 1-3 or 1-2 the week before. So we are officially hiring or taking applications for anyone that wants to be kind of the guy that leads us in games and bets or locks of the week, that wants to put in some like FanDuel accounts or anything like that. So but good takeaway that you said. I think maybe we'll bring back the rankings next week
Yeah.
as we get closer to the playoffs.
Yeah. Especially since we have also, I hate to not to fail to mention, we do have this All-Star, game coming up.
Oh yes, thank
Yeah.
you, Anthony.
Yeah.
The North has been absolutely dominant since we started this All Star. Well, really, honestly, since we broke up the draft and went down south 2 years ago, they have been kicking our ass in this matchup. So yeah, this week is the All Star. That's a great mention.
Yep.
We'll get 2 weeks of this. It sounds like so we'll have 2 weeks of this lineup. And then if we need to alternate, or maybe we pick two different lineups. I'm not really sure, but I'm sure Logan will tell us a little bit more as we go. But yeah, that'll be fun. That's a little side thing that we kind of introduced, which I think that's really neat. I do want to get back to rivalry weeks as well next
Yeah.
year. Because like I said, I think Ben and Rick playing each other twice a year would be fun. And some other ones. We can start developing some shit talk, some taunts, really get some good material for the pod as well from it. So, but yeah, appreciate you coming on. We'll hey, week 9 kicks off next tomorrow with Houston and the Jets, and we'll be back next Wednesday to see what the results are.
Yeah, for sure. Ready for some football, ready for a big week, a big All-Star week. Let's go South. Come on. Let's take it
Come on
home.
now.
But yeah, glad to be back. Looking forward to the next time we get to hop on here, and you stay classy out of the league.
All right, man. Appreciate it, brother. All right, man. Good talking.
You too, bro. Take it easy.
See ya.